All right, let's pull a quote from Genesis 15:6 again. From Romans 4:3, because we're going to see that Paul is going to quote this passage in this passage from Genesis 15:6. He's going to use it a few times in his commentary, referencing Romans 4:3, which says, "For what does the Tanakh say? Abraham put his trust in God, and it was credited to his account as righteousness." End quote. All right, so Paul just quoted Genesis 15:6 twice. He's got this quote from Galatians 3:6, and then he's got a quote in Romans 4:3, and they're both essentially the same quote, right? Abraham put his trust in God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Given this location within Paul's arguments, right, both from Romans and Galatians, we can see that it's clear that the phrase is really referring to imputed righteousness. Imputed. What does this mean? It's a fancy phrase. It means salvation-based righteousness, the kind that's credited to us on behalf of Messiah's account, right? Messiah is the one who is rich, and we are the ones who are bankrupt. Therefore, Messiah's righteousness is transferred to us via faith, via the vehicle of faith. And so this is an imputation, and it is positional righteousness. It's forensic right standing with Hashem. It's, to use modern 21st century language, it's simply salvation. I think that Paul is trying to get us to see. And I think it's axiomatic for Paul that Moshe describes this quality of Abraham. He describes it chronologically before Abraham receives the covenant of circumcision in Bereshit chapter 17. So that's where we're going to start going. It's here in Genesis 15 that Abraham's called righteous. In other words, that he's called saved. But it's not until Genesis 17 that Abraham receives circumcision. So Paul is aware of this. Paul's aware of the chronology, and he's going to use this to show the influencers that Abraham's salvation came while he was a Gentile. That's essentially what Paul's going to do by bringing in Abraham as the example, and as such, this becomes the reason why the Gentiles in Paul's day do not have to undergo a conversion to Jewish identity, because just like Papa Abraham, they too can be counted as righteous, i.e., they too can be saved and be called genuine covenant members while they are Gentiles. There's no need to add Jewish identity to the equation, because God already recognizes them as righteous. So, when we look at the sequence of events from Genesis 15 to 17, I believe that this speaks of the correct order in which to appropriate the covenant responsibilities of God. And this includes not only circumcision itself, but it's also going to include later on a discussion on the responsibility of Torah obedience. So what we could do is we could compare two views. On the micro, that is on the smaller level, saving faith in God, symbolized by God of accrediting Abraham's account as righteous, right? We saw that Hebrew word tzedakah, righteous. This saving faith precedes the patriarch's obedience to the sign of circumcision, which we have to remember was read here as Jewish identity by Paul's detractors. For Paul, on the micro, saving faith precedes Jewish identity. That's on the micro. But on a macro, if we kind of blow the picture up, on the larger picture, the covenant of Abraham itself precedes the covenant with Moshe. So we've got kind of two pictures in view, a small picture and a large picture. Thus, I could continue. Thus, we can infer that Sha'ul brings Abraham into the argument here in Galatians, to show to his Gentile readers that forensic righteousness as well, he needs to show to his Jewish readers, that forensic righteousness, salvation, is conferred to those who are not circumcised as well as to those who are, read Jew and Gentile respectively. So the circumcised are the Jews and the uncircumcised are the Gentiles. And so we know that Paul has this in view, because he's really gonna flesh this out in Romans chapter 4 if you were to read it as a commentary to Galatians chapter 3.